But my aim today is to suggest that our preaching as an act of worship is this. It should demonstrate that the core of the biblical narrative tells us that Jesus' life-transforming, though deeply misunderstood, life and message makes available to everyone the hope of the in-breaking presence of God. Let me say that again. Jesus' life-transforming, though deeply misunderstood message makes available to everyone the hope of the in-breaking presence of God. Ultimately, that's why we sing. That's why we preach. And the task for us is not to do it as giving information, but it is to cause transformation. So if you're spending most of your time simply thinking, how do I get people to know something, then you're going at it for the wrong reason. Ultimately, our task, like Jesus, is that they would know someone. I don't know if you remember what eternal life is. You find that out by eavesdropping as Jesus was praying. Obviously, the disciples were doing that because in John 17:3, it's recorded that Jesus says, this is life eternal. He's talking to God, the one he calls the Father. He says that they would know you and the one whom they have sent. So life eternal is for us to be in knowledge of God as made known through Jesus Christ. So the response that we want has to have something to do with that purpose. So if you want to tweet anything that I have to say, hashtag Order of the Flame, OOTF 19. And if you want me to get credit for it, put at George A. Moore. If you do that, then you can steal it and you can say you gave credit. I'll just give you a way out. So let's see. So I'm going to begin by letting you consider that when we speak, we have to start with something familiar. They need to know that you know something they know in order to believe you know something they don't. So you have to start where people are, a level of familiarity. And so the prayer that I pray, which is an adaptation of Stanley Hauerwas's prayer, that's how I admit I stole that. And then I adapted it using contemporary social media ideas, something that is familiar to us. That invited you to lean in. You didn't expect it, and yet it was so familiar. So you lean in, and you're close enough for me to knock your nose off. Because then I say something that you don't expect, and if you were paying attention to the prayer, in the midst of the prayer, you were responding. There were gasps, there were there were amens, then you were with me. The whole idea of communication is for us to, in the midst of giving out what we're giving, to make sure that folks are still with us. Every once in a while, you drop a joke or something like that and nobody laughs. And that either means that everybody has tuned you out or you're just not funny. We'll talk about that later. So you want to start with something familiar. So I'm going to do my obligatory Star Wars reference. And what you see up here, just something that, of course, who would have thought? And yet, it's something that starts with something that's familiar. familiar, take something that is very familiar, puts them together in a way that you hadn't thought of. And in essence, if you want a response from people, that's what you have to do. You have to take what they know and understand in this world, in their life, in their reality, and then provide a witness to God's reality. To let them know that the God who is the Creator is also a covenant-making and covenant-keeping God. That God is on the move to turn this world right side up, I think it was said. And what we see now is not God's intention. That God's intention is so much better than this. And we are the witnesses to that. And so we are pointing people from what they think they have a grasp on to something that they really, really want to encounter. So start with something that is familiar and move into something that is that you want to tie to that is greater than what they would imagine on their own. But be careful about gimmicks, because gimmicks work. And the problem is that you can give somebody so many gimmicks that it has absolutely nothing to do with your ultimate message. I mean, a Star Wars reference about the latest iPod music piece. Well, I'm sure if I thought about it hard enough, I could come up with the rate that fits in with John 3:16. But I'm going to take these off. You're welcome. Well, that was just up there for cuteness. And if you only have a few minutes like I have right now, much less than I would like to have with you, every time you use something like that so that you get a quick response from people, you lose the opportunity to get in and give a real response from people. So gimmicks will work. I mean, you can get a response from a political ad, you can get a response from a television commercial, you can get a response from a video. The problem is that it's very easy to take something that someone else has done that you know works, drop it, and try to get credit for yourself. The question is whether or not God is getting any credit. But our ultimate goal is to form a community. So we tell stories. I really hope that's wrong. Yep, it's not. Okay. I'm going to have to go faster than this. We tell stories because stories form community. So if I sit down and I tell you that everybody, where's Christian? Christian, do you live here in the States? I didn't think so. Do you drive on the right side of the street? Like we do here in the United States? You guys do?
Yes.
Oh, bummer. I'm sorry. Okay, so you don't drive on the right side of the street. So if I told all of you that the exact only way to drive is to drive on the right side of the street, what's your name? Danny would be in trouble when he went back home and got in his car, right? So sometimes when we're giving people rules and principles and not taking into consideration their context, we're giving them something they can't use. It might be right for this situation, but have you prepared them for a unique situation? Scripture is not so much principles and platitudes. We pull those sound bites out so that we can tweak them. But Scripture is actually a story that is unfolding the dramatic actions of a God who is transforming the world. And He's telling a story, narrating the people that walked out of that story back in. So ever since Adam and Eve ate themselves out of house and home, that was a response, thank you very much. God has been editing the story to bring us back in. Because ultimately, God's idea is to form a people with whom God's Spirit so evidently abides that the world takes notice not of us, but takes notice of God. So We are trying to find something that people are familiar with and drawing them into something that will transform the way that they see the world. Let me see if I can do this by taking you back home for me. I grew up on the south side of Chicago in a small community where we all knew each other. It's like I grew up in Chicago, and I actually grew up in a small town. And there we had a great time with one another. And one of the things that was really significant for us when I was growing up was who it was that was most successful athletically. It wasn't me. And so there was a time when I was growing up, well, let's see if these images can help you with just a few memories of the time when everyone knew who was on the ropes. And maybe it wasn't that set of ropes, but that set of ropes. Remember when bars protected us. Oh, excuse me. Remember the feel of water on our backs. Remember when bars protected us. Remember when clergy wore robes, when Christians wore robes? Well, the truth is, I'm not sure that that set of images gave you what comes to my mind when I hear those words. So let me take the sound bite and repeat it, and we'll refocus as we remember. Remember when everyone knew who was on the ropes. Remember the feel of the water on our backs. Remember when bars protected us. Remember when Christians wore robes. You can use the same line, but the question has to be, what kind of response are we seeking? You can say the right thing in the right setting that is so familiar, but you take it out of that setting, and it has an entirely different meaning. We can only speak from our experience. So the question is, what kind of response are you seeking? If the response is to make me the showpiece, you failed. If the response is to get out of the way and let God be God, you're on your way to something transformative. That was a little heavy for the beginning before lunch, so let me see if I can lighten it up a little bit. I took this picture. There's a rainbow sticking up out of there. I was traveling on the road, really happy to stop. I love being in Indiana because I can see things like that. I'm in Michigan right now, all I see is snow. Life is rough. But we are all witnesses to something. And the truth is that when you've experienced something, when you've seen something, you really want to tell somebody about it. You don't have to be told, go and tell somebody to see the rainbow. You take a picture of it and you show it to people. If you're not driving, you text someone that's in the car or the neighborhood that you know. I got a text message a couple of days ago from a friend of mine who simply said, go out and look at the moon. It was a beautiful crescent. I was in Flint, she was in Lansing, but she knew that I could see that same moon. And so there was no instruction that says, every night when you go out and tell someone to look at the moon you're looking at. But one day somebody like you is going to do that because I just said that to you. Okay? I'm not telling you to do it, but one day you're going to have an incredible encounter with something visual, like in the sky, like a moon. And you're going to know that there's someone that you would like to connect with, building community. And so you will do that. That's the idea of what we're trying to do. Being witnesses to something and sharing it with someone else so that they can have the incredible experience that you had. And the only reason that we are having this incredible experience is because the creator of the universe is narrating us back into history and inviting us to narrate others in along, because God's intent has always been to form a community with whom God's Spirit so evidently abides that the world will take notice that God is, and God is good. It reminds me of this. I used the word that as I prayed that we are to be iconic witnesses of God. So ever since God labored over a lump of clay and donated dignity to humanity, giving us the birthmark made in the image, it's okay to laugh, into made in the image of the Holy One. God has been forming a people. And our task, what it means to be human, according to the designer, is simply to be a transcript of a Trinity. That's how the Wesleys put it. I call us divine facsimiles. What it means is that we are iconic witnesses. God said, do not make an icon of God, because God himself had made the ultimate icon. It's you and me. That's who we are. That's what it means to be human, made in the image of God. So God isn't asking us to make something better. God is simply asking us to point to what God is doing. And the way that you can see that in the world, you'll see this next slide. I actually had this young woman in my church when she was much younger. I know you think she's a Disney character, but that's Olivia. I stole that off of her Facebook page. Olivia has set up a group of people who are willing to do what she did when she worked at Disney. You see, if you want to work at Disney, they don't want you to be as creative as Walt. They want you to be willing to dress up with something that Disney has already created and point people to that experience. So that is all God is asking us to do. God is not asking us to build the kingdom. God is not asking us to make the kingdom. God is simply asking us to point to the glimpses of the inbreaking of God's peace that God has already prepared for us. If that response that you've just given me is why the great revivals have happened in the past, in a situation much like our own, Wesley encountered a broken economy and a broken people, a segregated society by class, by race, by culture, and Wesley brought in simply the good news of the Creator God looking for iconic witnesses. And the Spirit spread like wildfire. That's what we do. How many of you have ever made a promise to your kid that you were going to take them to Disney when they were old enough to appreciate it? You know, a few years ago, the Southern Baptists said that they were going to boycott Disney for a year. Anybody remember that? They didn't like the way Disney was going, so they said they're going to boycott Disney for a year, a particular year. The interesting thing about that is that Disney knew two things. One, they knew everybody that had promised their 10-year-old for their 10th birthday they were going to Disney wasn't going to break that promise. And so all of those Southern Baptists were coming anyway. And the other thing they knew is if they had a little lull that year, they could maybe work on the rides and fix things up, because the boycott was for a year. So Disney could take advantage of the law, knowing that they would have even more people the next year, and they could enjoy that. Okay? When you're doing a protest like that, you don't do it for an hour, for a day, for a moment. You do it until you get what it is you're trying to get. Okay? Now let me tell you something about that idea. You're bearing witness not to yourself. You're bearing witness to God's community. So don't go and teach people to be protesters. Go and teach people to be witnesses to God's good in everything that they do. And in our culture, that's going to be a protest. If you're loving your enemies, that's going to be a protest. If you are forgiving people who have wronged you, that's going to be countercultural. If you are willing to give people a listen, an ear, that's countercultural. And if you do that and people scratch their head and wonder, why are you listening to me? Why are you talking to me? Why don't you just let me in at the stoplight? And then we can get the reputation all over again, like they did the first century. Christians act like that, nobody else. Give me the next slide. Dietrich Bonhoeffer said this: a concert audience does not come to watch a conductor, but to hear the music. And a church congregation should not come to watch or hear the preacher, but to listen to the Word of God. If people are coming to your church because you are setting up a protest, you've already missed it. Because what you have done is you have taken something that was an action that made it possible for this culture, this human culture, to be multicultural like the church is supposed to be. That protest was, I was reminded by James Lawson a couple of years ago, that protest was because blacks could not vote. They had no voice and no representation. Okay? So they did what they did because they had no other way. And that was why they protested. So that's why they didn't ride the bus, not for a day, not for a week, not for a month, but until they were given full seating on the bus. They dropped out of society until society realized they needed them in. They dropped out of society. That was the protest. Well, think about what it means for us to say that the response we want for our people is for them to do civic protest, for them to get thrown in jail. Is that really the response of what it means to build a community? Because all we're doing is making enemies. The task for us is to point beyond ourselves, whether we're talking about ourselves as an individual, or I'm talking about myself as a woman, or I'm talking about myself as a person of color. What I am supposed to do is to point to the God who chose to create us as a multicultural, multilingual, multi-ethnic community. That's what God is calling for. So the question always has to be, what kind of response are you seeking? So I'm going to say a few things right now, just as I close up, about the kinds of response that we can get alongside of how we do it. Okay? Ultimately, what I'm inviting you to do is to be so much invitation to the community of God that people want to be in your space, so that you gather them in, so that they have the confidence to go out and be a loner in the world. So when we gather this order of the flame, we're reminding you that you're not alone. It's not just to see all the Wesleyan family together. It's about evangelism. But we can't go out and be a witness to who God is and what God is doing in the world if we don't feel like somebody's been affected before us. And we gather at these tables to say, yeah, it's been going on a while. But what happens next is that we have to go out and we have to talk to people. And we don't get this nice little retreat area where people get to leave the cold and the snow and come down here to where it's warm and the sun is shining and they're naps. You get good food. You got to do it week by week, wherever you are, day by day. And one way to do it, which I keep trying to do, is to make you laugh. Don't tell people this is funny. Make them laugh. I told you I was going to come back to that. Don't tell me this is funny, because then I'm going to be like, yeah, all right, let me see if you can tell a joke. And if you don't make me laugh, you're a liar. Okay, you could be just incompetent. But either way, if you think you're funny and you told me this was going to be funny and I didn't laugh and I can't believe you about that, why should I believe you about something ultimate that I can't wrap my mind around? Yeah. The same thing is true if you're going to tell me this is important. Make it important. Move from the trivial Star Wars reference to something that is very important. That the Father, the one that Jesus called Father, has created us to be iconic witnesses, transcripts of the Trinity. That's important. I shouldn't have to tell you that. When you see the trivial and it's put up against something bigger, I've made it important. Okay? Tears, gasp, humor, laughter. When you get to the core of people's involuntary response, you can lay a heavy truth on them because all their defenses are down. If I say something that makes you laugh, and then I got you leaning in and I slap your nose off, you're going to feel it because you're leaning in. If I had just given you rule and told you how you don't belong and how bad you are and how you're dying and going to hell and this is what you need to do about it, you have shut me out so many sentences before, there's no way I got across to you. So the whole idea is to get folks to lean in, not by telling them this is going to be important to listen to me or hear me here. Don't say that. Draw us in. So I was supposed to give you a couple of stories, and I'm over time. So we have problems. You gonna let me keep on going? Okay. So, okay. I have to rewind here because I was trying to finish my watch went off, and I realized that I was over time. Let me stop. Okay. So you want to speak in such a way where people are leaning in. And they lean in with humor. They lean in with something that is powerful. You don't tell them that. You find a situation that is, and then you convey it. So let me see if I can do that with the following story that happened to me. Some of you have heard me tell this story because it is one of the incredible transformations of God's act in the ministry, early on in my ministry. Where there was a young man, or not so young man, I was young then, and he told me when his oldest daughter had the birthday that I had been when I was their pastor, I said, oh my goodness, she's still a kid, and I was just that age when I was your pastor. He said, yeah, I could have told you were wet behind the ears when you came to us. But he wasn't a believer. And they were ready to leave the church because that was just a customary, perfunctory community thing that they did. And I came in believing that the only thing I had to offer them was to let them know the love of God and know in Jesus Christ, that they could be iconic witnesses of God. And so what happens is I go in, they come in the first Sunday because they can't believe the bishop sent them a black woman for a preacher. So they walk into the church solely to hear me give it to the rest of the people in church. And all I had was, some version of John 3:16. And so he said, well, she's ordained in the United Methodist Church. She's got to have one of those messages. So they came back the second Sunday. And I did the same thing with a different verse. I told them the love of God they've known in Jesus Christ, that they can be iconic witnesses and have eternal life. And for the third Sunday, he came and he had a Bible in his hand. And he met me at the back of the church. And he said, you act like you believe this stuff. Kind of banking my life on it. And we got into an intellectual argument about whether or not the Bible was reliable. And I did everything I could to intellectually win him over. I failed. But we had a lot of great conversations. He was listening, he was hearing, but he was not responding. And so this was my first solo charge, so I can confess this now. I know better, but I decided I would pray for him. At that point, not yet. Yeah, right. I'm better about that now. And so I said, God, apparently this isn't working. And I know you love him more than I do. So you do something to get his attention. And God laid on my heart a book to give to him. And so I got up out of my house right then, and I drove over to their farm. I knocked on his door. I put the book in his hand. And he said to me, I'm not reading any more of your books. And that was when I realized that you can have a conversation like this and a conversation like this at the same time. Because what I said to him was, really? Why not? And what I said to God was, well, at least when I was in control and was reading this stuff, you said, well, he's not reading anymore. Why am I supposed to do now? And then I listened to his response, which was, well, you've been giving me all these books about God. I thought maybe I should read the Bible for myself. Oh. Fast forward. His reading and his seeking was met by a covenant-keeping God who says, if you seek me, you know this one. Right. That is a response. Every once in a while, you say a half sentence that you know your audience knows, but they have to be leaning in to listen to get as much response as they did. A friend of mine did that once. In the middle of her sermon, she said, so it would be that we would believe again that Christ has died, Christ is risen, and Christ will come again. And as she said it, everybody said that response from the communion service with her. It hadn't even actually been her intent, but everybody was so on her words that they just were able to recite those words with her. I didn't say the words to the rest of the scripture, but you did in your verbal affirmation of knowing that. And so in his seeking, what happens is he begins to be transformed. A few years later, I'm no longer their pastor. I'm actually now teaching at Asbury. And I go back to visit this family. The wife greets me and says, oh, it's so good to see you. He greets me with, we need to talk. And I'm like, hi, good to see you too. And I said, what do we have to talk about? He says, I don't think God is so bothered by my drinking and smoking, and I want to talk to you about it. And I'm like, whoa. Okay, so you think that because I'm at Asbury, which at the time had an ethos statement of no drinking, no alcohol, no tobacco, no dancing, and because that was our ethos statement, you think I'm going to come back to your house and I'm going to tell you to stop drinking and stop smoking? And he was like, well, no, you ain't that stupid. So I said, well, are people at the church trying to get you? And he said, no, ain't nobody messing with me at church. He was a big guy, nobody messed with him. And so I said to him, why don't you tell me why we need to have this conversation? And he said, well, it just seems that the more that I pray, the more that I read scripture, and the closer I get to God, the less I feel the need to drink and smoke. If I had gone to him with the rule and with the platitude and said to him, you want to be a Christian, one day you're not going to want that bottle, you're not going to want that cigar, you're going to be a totally different man, you're going to tell clean jokes, you're going to be a totally different person, I can't wait till you get saved, he would have said, I don't have nothing to do with that. That's why I'm not a Bible total scripture quoting on my knees praying kind of person. He actually told me that. But because I was willing to be in community with him, and because the only message I had to preach to him was the love of God made known in Jesus Christ, that he would know that he has been created as an iconic witness, that God labored over dirt to make him the perfect icon of the Creator. He was drawn in, and the response was something that only the Spirit could do. All I was doing was pointing to the inbreaking of the presence of God, and he responded by receiving God, not me. And that's what it means for us to preach for response. Amen. There are all kinds of tools I could give you, but they mean nothing if what you are not doing is asking the Holy Spirit to give you the capacity to point to what God is already doing in the world and has been doing from the beginning. And I remind you, it is forming a community with whom the Spirit of God so evidently abides that the world takes notice of God. Preaching for response is simply preaching for folks to hear God's call on their life. If you do that and get out of the way, what you will see will be absolutely amazing.